Hello, this is the English News Bulletin on QPVN channel. I'm Chong Yun, and now let me keep you up to date with the headlines. President Reup receives Russian ambassador to Vietnam. Vietnam attends EUROSATORY 2024 defense exhibition in France. Hanoi develops craft villages. On June the 17th, at the presidential palace, receiving Russian ambassador to Vietnam Gennady Bedetko, President Reup asked the ambassador to convey his sincere thanks to Russian President Vladimir Putin for his good wishes on the occasion of his election as President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. President Reup affirmed that Vietnam always considers Russia one of the top priority partners in its foreign policy, closely monitors the situation, and supports Russia's stable development. The Vietnamese Party, state, and people always remember the significant and heartfelt support provided by the Soviet and Russian people, both historically during the fight for national independence and reunification and in ongoing national building and safeguarding. President Reup spoke highly of the positive development of the traditional friendship and comprehensive strategic partnership between Vietnam and Russia across all channels and areas. He also expressed confidence that existing bilateral mechanisms will ensure the continued growth of the comprehensive strategic partnership. President Putin's upcoming visit to Vietnam will be a milestone in the two countries' relations. The host and the guest agreed on close coordination for thorough preparations by both countries' relevant agencies for the upcoming Vietnam visit by President Vladimir Putin, contributing to further strengthening solidarity, traditional friendship, and comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. On June the 17th, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam issued a statement confirming that at the invitation of Vietnamese Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng, Russian President Vladimir Putin will pay a state visit to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam from June the 19th to the 20th. The visit occurs on the 30th anniversary of the Treaty on Principles of Friendly Relations between Vietnam and Russia, June the 16th, 1994, June the 16th, 2024. This will be the fifth time President Vladimir Putin has visited Vietnam, and this time shortly after his re-election for a new term. The militaries of Vietnam and China need to enhance cooperation in education and training. That was stressed by Senior Lieutenant General Hoàng Xuân Chiến, Deputy Defense Minister, during the reception for a mission of the National Defense University of China on a 4-day field trip to Vietnam. Senior Lieutenant General Hoàng Xuân Chiến stressed that the Ministry of National Defense of Vietnam supports the exchange of experience between military schools and academies of the two countries. He hoped that relevant agencies and units of the two defense ministries would continue to preserve and promote the traditional friendship and solidarity between the two parties, governments, and militaries to a new height and in a more comprehensive manner. Military schools and academies of the two countries should augment cooperation and exchanges of delegations for experience sharing in the coming time. The Deputy Director of the National Defense University of China stressed the importance of the close relationship and comradeship between the two countries, including defense cooperation, which he hopes would be a pioneering pillar in the bilateral relations. At the invitation of the Ministry of Armed Forces of France, a delegation of the Ministry of National Defense of Vietnam, led by Senior Lieutenant General Phùng Sĩ Tấn, Deputy Chief of the General Staff, attended the EUROSATORY 2024 defense exhibition in France from June the 17th to the 21st. Held biannually, EUROSATORY is one of the biggest defense exhibitions, gathering the participation of world-leading defense enterprises. This year's event draws 2,000 booths of 62 countries, some 62,000 visitors from 150 countries and territories, and 250 official delegations from 96 countries and territories. Vietnam has been a frequent guest at the EUROSATORY since 1998, as the country aims to update on new technologies and scientific advancements, as well as to promote cooperation opportunities. After attending the opening ceremony of the exhibition, the Vietnamese delegation toured the displaying areas of some defense industry businesses. The delegation also met with representatives of the agencies of the French Ministry of Armed Forces. Since establishing diplomatic relations, and especially upgrading to a strategic partnership, the relationship between Vietnam and New Zealand has continuously fostered in all fields. On the occasion of the official visit of New Zealand Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Winston Peters to Vietnam, and the 49th founding anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Vietnam and New Zealand, June 19, 1975, June 19, 2024, we had a talk with New Zealand Ambassador to Vietnam, Caroline Beresford, on the relationship between the two countries in 2024 and the cooperation prospects in the following years. So first of all, thank you very much for taking this interview with the QPVN channel. Vietnam and New Zealand established the diplomatic relations on June the 19th, 1975. What are some outstanding achievements in the bilateral cooperation between the two countries over the past half a century, and what are some key cooperation areas?
You're right. Next year is our 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations. It's a big milestone for us. And it's extraordinary to look back on what we've achieved in those 50 years. Under our current relationship, we operate a lot of activities under what we call the Strategic Partnership Action Plan. And that was signed in 2020 and includes a whole range of activities across education, agriculture, defence cooperation, a lot of technical assistance and capacity building, and a sharing of each country's strengths, because of course friends support each other's aspirations, and Vietnam is a great friend of New Zealand. Some highlights for us probably are our education program. We offer a range of scholarships to Vietnamese young people to come to New Zealand and study English, but also short course training on specific issues like leadership and governance. We also have some big development programs in Vietnam which are aimed mostly at helping Vietnam to develop a more climate resilient agriculture and to commercialise some of its beautiful fruits like passion fruit and dragon fruit.
How do you evaluate the significance and importance of the visit to Vietnam by the New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters?
That was a great visit, and we were so pleased to have him here. The significance of that visit was as a sign of the great respect and friendship that New Zealand has for Vietnam. Minister Peters has an extremely busy travel program, but he's come to Vietnam in the first 6 months as Foreign Minister. The visit was a chance for us to reflect on what we have achieved and to look forward to what we might achieve after our 50th anniversary next year, where we might be able to expand our cooperation, but also to keep our relationship relevant and modern, so that we are expanding our activities into areas like the green economy, digitalisation, sustainable agriculture and other areas. We're also planning to have our first Oceans Dialogue this year with Vietnam, which is a big development for New Zealand and an opportunity for us to discuss some of our shared concerns about maritime governance in our region.
So 2025 will be a big milestone as it marks the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic relations and the 5th anniversary of the strategic partnership between Vietnam and New Zealand. Can you share some plans of activities to celebrate this big milestone?
Well, we've been working really hard on a program of activity, and I'll be ready to announce those publicly soon. At the moment, we need to work those through with our Vietnamese partners and make sure that we have the full understanding across both agencies in New Zealand and Vietnam for those activities. But we would hope that they would include things like cultural activities, perhaps an art exhibition. We would like to have our Prime Minister visit Vietnam to reciprocate the visit of Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh to New Zealand, and many other things. So we're not quite ready to release the program yet, but I will be soon.
Once again, thank you very much for your sharings today. On sea voyages to Trường Sa archipelago, delegates and sailors stay on fishery surveillance ships or Navy vessels. Yet the fact that all the meals being prepared on board doesn't affect their quality. From the main meals to snacks, passengers are treated to delicious, diverse and warm foods. The credit for those wonderful meals goes to the dedication and diligence of the ship's cooks. During the 7-day sea voyage, members of this working delegation to Cheongsha archipelago were served nutritious and tasty meals, whose quality is as good as those prepared in the mainland. Every day, nearly 300 delegates were served 3 main meals and 1 light meal before bedtime. To perform such tasks, the ship's kitchen crew had to follow a relatively tight schedule. We often get up at 3:30 a.m. every day to prepare the meals. We only get a quick nap around noon when we finish, and by 1 p.m. we start preparing for dinner, dessert, and snacks. We eat quickly and sleep just as quickly. It is normal to grab 10, 15, or 20 minutes of nap whenever we can. Because these are items that need to be kept frozen, we had to freeze them in Hanoi and store them in foam boxes. During transportation, our biggest concern was not having adequate freezing conditions, which could spoil the food. But fortunately, up to this point, the food has been well preserved. The delegation wants to bring specialties to convey the love from the mainland to the soldiers in Cheongsha. Despite many difficulties, the Navy cooks believe that working in the ship's kitchen offers them interesting experiences. It is their job, so they do not shy away from challenges, but to fulfill the mission of taking care of crew members and passengers. Each safe voyage is greatly credited to the ship's logistics team. Although their time on land is minimal and they rarely meet friends and family, their smiles always shine brightly amidst the vast ocean. Coming up next, efforts to combat IUU fishing reviewed. Hanoi develops craft villages. On June the 17th, Deputy Prime Minister Chen Liu-Guang chaired a conference of the National Steering Committee on Illegal, Unreported and Unregulated, or IUU for short, fishing prevention and control. As reported, after nearly 7 years of the efforts to remove the yellow card warning of the European Commission, so far remarkable results have been recorded. In details, legal framework has been completed, meeting EC's requirements. Most recently, on June the 12th, the Council of Judges of the Supreme People's Court issued Resolution No. 4, guarding the application of a number of provisions of the Penal Code on the prosecution of criminal liability for acts related to illegal exploitation, trading, and transportation of aquatic products. Deputy Prime Minister Chen Liu-Guang urged on continuing promoting the mass dissemination while strictly handling IUU fishing cases. He asked localities to strengthen coordination among functional forces while implementing the solutions synchronously, drastically, and comprehensively. Hanoi, the land of hundreds of occupations, has yet to fully tap its potential for the development of social economy. In that context, a project to develop craft villages in Hanoi has been built and underway to be improved by different agencies at all levels for approval. The project is a step to develop craft villages in contribution to economic development in rural areas. The center of Vietnamese craft village quintessence, a tiered and canyon-like building complex simulating a traditional gourd stove in Ba Chang Craft Village, has been heavily invested by artisan Ha Thị Vinh. She hopes to make this facility a place where the quintessence of Ba Chang Craft Village is showcased for tourists. We're happy that the values of Ba Chang ceramics have attracted tourists here. They're interested in our stories and want to enjoy the local cuisine, which are all served here. Traditional crafts are now means of livelihood for many local farmers. However, they've been facing the question on where they could sell their products and how they could preserve the traditional craft for young people who are no longer keen on inheriting the professions. We encourage young people to preserve the professions, and many of them decided to do so. Hanoi is called the land of hundreds of occupations. Although resources are quite large, most localities have yet to fully tap their strengths and potential, of which the lack of a master plan is culprit. Traditional craft villages must develop without any detrimental to the environment, and there should be raw material areas serving the craft villages. Hanoi has just assigned departments and agencies to completing the project for craft village development in the city prior to September 30th, 2024 for approval, which is the first step to develop craft villages in contribution to socio-economic development in rural areas, thus improving the living standard of locals in those craft villages.
And that's all for now. Remember, you can always watch news again at qpvn.vn. Thank you for watching and hope to see you next time.